Nikkole Salter. She wrote Ways and Means. France-Luce Benson wrote Nana. Sienna Jones wrote They Live in You. And Banna Desta wrote Bygone Fruit. So I have a couple questions, and just feel free, whoever would like to, jump in. The first question is, how did each of you find your way? It's a two-part. First, how did each of you find your way into the prompt? And then, did anything surprise you, or did anything reveal itself to you unexpectedly or caught you off guard as you were writing from the prompt? It looks like Sienna wants to say something. It looks like France-Luce is thinking, Nikkole's thinking, Banna's just chill.
My answer is kind of easy. My play was really inspired by a conversation that Antu and I had. A very broad conversation just about being Black in America, and specifically being African women in America. And so I had the prompt from our conversation, and I was thinking a lot about food during the time of Corona. I'd also read If God Can, I'm gonna butcher the title. I don't know. It's a really long title, but it's a Ntozake Shange book about food, and she takes on a really diasporan view of food, and it sort of explores her travels, and I thought the way that she was talking about how we're all no matter where you are, you can find food connected to your culture, or can relate to food, like the cuisine of wherever you are, to something that's important to you, and that's something that's I think is deeply ancestral. So that's sort of how I started.
I can answer. At the end of last year, November through January, I was doing a residency at the Sakatar Institute in Bahia. So I spent over 2 months there, and I went to an Egun ceremony, and I went to several candomblé ceremonies, and had a couple of readings, and I already incorporate a lot of that spirituality from the Haitian perspective in my work, but I had so many rich experiences being in Bahia. I mean, the spiritual practice of candomblé is woven into the culture, even if you don't practice. So I think I had the ancestors just washing over me and through me. And while I was there, I learned how to do an ancestor ritual, which I've been doing often. So those were the first things that came to mind. And I thought of this goddess Nana, who's the Mother Supreme. She's an Egun ceremony, and Egun is like an embodiment of all of the ancestors. So that's what I was thinking about. And during the pandemic, a lot of what I've thought about is people dying alone, and just what that is. And I know that we come into this world alone and we die alone, but to be in a room and not know what's happening and not breathing on your own, I just kind of was thinking what that would look like on a spiritual level. So that's how I came into the play.
And France-Luce, before we move on, just for people who are, who are going to eventually see this and are listening, can you tell us in a very short, precise way? I mean, that may be difficult because there's a lot that goes into it, but what exactly is candomblé?
It's a spiritual practice that's a derivative of Yoruba, and it's very similar to Haitian voodoo, to Santeria, to all of those practices where they worship the orishas. And I think the best way that I can describe it, it's a connection to nature. All of the orishas are, it's about water, it's about the ocean, it's about the earth, the plants, the wind, air, fire, but it's a derivative of an African spiritual practice.
Thank you. Nikkole, do you have something you were ready to say? I felt an energy through the screen.
I don't know what you felt, but I will speak now. um, I was actually thinking I don't remember the prompt because I was trying to trace back the way that I thought of the play. And I was like, I don't remember exactly the original prompt, but what I do remember is leaving our conversation feeling like I wanted to write something generational. And when I shot the idea to you broadly about that, your reply actually made me feel like I wanted the generational discussion to relate more to what was happening today in today's iteration of the civil rights struggle, the human rights struggle. From there, I procrastinated for a while because I didn't know what that meant. I just knew broadly what I wanted that to be, and I stumbled upon the work of a woman named Tanisha Ford. She's an academic who does a lot of work about Black women and glamour and fashion and the intersectionality of the socialite spheres of Black women. And what's interesting is that resonated with me because when I did the play, I did a play called The Great Society where I had to play Coretta Scott King. And it allowed me reading her autobiography, the autobiography of Coretta Scott King. I learned that Black women were often responsible for the fundraising of the movement. And it brought me like back. I was like, you're like, what were the women doing? They were hosting lunches and tournaments and contests and concerts and fish fries and all kinds of things to keep this movement going and funded. And I said, how come we don't know that? How come there's no chronicle of that history? And that's when I got the idea. I was like, I'm going to kind of over the generations show the intersection of this desire for value and high society and beauty and glamour mixed with all of these fundraisers because a lot of them are very familiar to me, but I didn't realize that they were fundraisers. How many fashion fair events I went to when I was a child that were all fundraisers for the United Negro College Fund? How many, like all of these things that I went to all the time, I just didn't recognize that they were actually a part of that grand narrative. And so I wanted to create something that showed how that occurred. But I also wanted to create something that showed the tension between the capitalist fundraising model and the civil rights struggle itself. How there are no kind of clean lines there. And I just thought that was very interesting. So that's what inspired me.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you. Sienna, you're the last one to talk about this before we move on. What surprised you? How did you find your way into the prompt?
I actually learned a lot. I actually had no idea what kumbaya meant. So just did a lot of research on that. And I don't know, I felt like I was Essence a little bit because I was learning a lot that I didn't even know. I guess we all can be Essence in a way. I didn't struggle with it, but after the prompt, I was like, ancestors, all right. So I was thinking like the past, all right, my ancestors, we were slaves, cool. And then I was like, nah, I want to do something from the future, something cool. And like, there's going to be like robots. I don't know. I was thinking, and then I was like, all right, I need to calm down and just write a nice discussion or moment between family. So I love just, picking and choosing from my life. So I have a little sister who's 17. So she was able to let me know the musicians out, like Harry Styles and stuff like that. And like TikTok is a big thing right now. So like, I don't know, I just thought it would be interesting to write from a teenager's point of view in a way. And then I guess sort of having the spirit of Esprit sort of guiding her throughout, sort of guiding her throughout life and teaching her about her culture and everything. So it sort of just all spoke to me. I just wrote it, and I'm very happy with what I wrote, and I did my research and everything, and I learned a lot. And so I guess I struggled a little bit with it by having too many ideas. But then when I really just sat there and really just, wanted to share something real, it came out. So
Awesome. And before I ask my next question, I just want to say that in every single one of your plays, there was like, all types of sparks going on inside of me, because something I have been very frustrated with, and I don't think it's unique to me in terms of the entertainment industry, theater, television, film, is the lack of, multi dimensional characters when it comes to not only Black males, but Black females, and everything that was shared today. I was so happy because there were so many different women who you saw glimpses of each of these women who are not regularly, shared in any of these mediums that we're used to. So I was really happy at how you all went in to show all these different women who are part of this movement, I mean, and they have been. It's just like the way that we have all gotten here, sometimes we've our paths have crossed, sometimes they have not, sometimes we've clashed, actually. But what's the beautiful thing is that we all are still here. And that it was just really powerful to hear your words and see these characters and feel them. They're strong. They were all, I think I put this in an Instagram post, but they were all strong and all vulnerable. And they were all layered, which feels to me like revolutionary, which it shouldn't be, because we've grown up in this, in this society, seeing that in white characters all along. But there's something about this that feels like, oh my God, this is, we can breathe. Something is opening and we will never go back. It's like the words of Brandy in the last monologue she delivers, Nikkole, like that this is not happening anymore. What used to happen. And so there's this really, it just feels really good. And so I'm so grateful that like you all brought it. And so my next question is, how does the word ancestor define itself in your work as a playwright?
Well, my first play for the public was a play called In the Continuum. I've been exploring the ways in which we are all a part of the history that we've inherited. I think every one of my plays is sort of a backward-looking play. I actually admire Sienna's work, or Sienna's idea of like thinking forward, because so much of my work is about understanding what is. And in order to understand what is, you have to do a lot of unpacking about what you've inherited in all ways. And so I think if I am to be my own version of Shakespeare, which I hate to say because I don't want to be a version of Shakespeare, but like I've written my collection of history plays, and now I'm interested to see how I can reuse my imagination, since I can use it to create whatever I want. Like, how much joy can I make? How much love can I make? How much peace can I put on the page? Like, while still sort of honoring the inherent structure of story, which is growth through conflict. I'm very resistant to some of that, like on a deep level, and I don't know why that is. My characters often reflect on what they've inherited, and it stops them from being able to get what they want, and or they get what they want and it doesn't mean what they thought it meant. So I'm interested to see like how to, I don't think we can divorce ourselves from what we've inherited, but how I can pull out through the connection with the past, and through the connection of all the people that it took to make who we are, something like the nugget of gold in the stories that I tell in the future.
simple answer for me is, you know, I'm a first generationer. My family is Haitian, and I grew up here. And when I started writing plays, the first couple plays I wrote were really generic and not, you know, I hadn't found my voice and there was no identity, and I wasn't really writing from my cultural perspective. And when I chose to write a play that really embraced my culture, I discovered things about our history that had been revised here in America, drastically, and that became like a driving force for my work. So I also, I mean, I've written many history plays, and it's really, I am really kind of concerned about the concept of erasure, particularly with immigrants. And it's really complicated because we want to acculturate, and I grew up here. I feel very American. I'm an American citizen, but I also don't want to lose my cultural identity. And I, more importantly, feel like it's a duty, it's a responsibility, it's an honor for me to share our history with people and to let people know, no, that's not what happened. Here's what happened, really. And a lot of what we enjoy in America is directly related to the sacrifices my ancestors in Haiti made. And so it really, it's a driving force for me as an artist, honoring my ancestors, particularly my Haitian ancestors.